Since Shadowdark RPG came out, I've been hooked. The problem is I would like more of my 5e players and friends to make the jump with me. So I want to show how easy it is to make a character in Shadowdark RPG to prove it's as easy, if not easier, than 5e. Hey, I'm C-Mike, I'm a Dungeon Master, and I enjoy playing Shadowdark, so let's just talk about it. It doesn't mean the game you play isn't good. It just means I like this game and I want to talk about it. We have a few different ways we can do it. The old-fashioned way with dice and paper, or we can use the official free online character builder. So I'm going to do kind of a combination where I look at the digital character creator and I'll make a character using my homebrew Jotun ancestry in my world Aida. And you all can tell me at the end in the comments how I did it all wrong. That being said, I really have enjoyed the games I've run, Cocaine Owlbear, A Knight's Tale, and I'm even prepping to do one live on stream soon. So make sure you're subscribed to get notified for that. So, Shadowdarklings. This includes all the official material, including expansion zines and a couple of the most popular third-party sources. They also have the new optional class, Roustabout. I think I'm saying that right. Roustabout? Roustabout? I think it's Roustabout, which I'll get into when I start talking about classes. But it may be one of my favorite classes yet. So let's start with your background, which in the book is a table you roll on or choose from. Unlike 5e, backgrounds don't give you any specific numerical bonuses. Instead, they give you a pithy story and ways you can use to get advantage in the game. For example, if I choose Thieves Guild, I get connections, contracts, and debts. For 5e players, what that really means is if I find a way to utilize those elements in the game, I can get advantage on my roll. I can find a way to apply the debts that I carry for other people, or connections that I know. See what background we get. 18, a scholar. You know much about ancient history and lore. I can use those to get advantages on specific rolls, which basically replaces Shadowdark's proficiency bonus. Instead of assigning a +2, +3, +4, and so on, you roll with advantage when it makes sense you would have advantage from your background, class abilities, ancestry, or your story.
I love you, you know.
Then we move to the stats, which would be your ability scores in 5e, and determine your modifiers. We have all the best hits: strength, dex, con, intelligence, wisdom, charisma, and there's no +5 or -5, by the way. The game caps at 18 for your stats, meaning that the modifier caps at negative and +4. In 5e though, you roll 4d6 and take the 3 highest dice rolls, and you do that for each ability score. Then in D&D, you assign those rolls to the scores you want. Shadowdark takes a slightly different approach. Instead of 4d6, you roll 3d6, and that's what you get. But if none of your scores equal 14 or higher, you need to re-roll all your stats again and repeat this process until you finally get at least 14.
No! God, please, no!
To be honest, this rides the line of fun and annoying, but we can come back to that because the Roustabout, I keep wanting to say Roustabout, not Roustabout. Roustabout takes care of this for the game. Trust me, we'll get to it. Oh, I also forgot to mention, you roll all your stats in order, from strength to dex to con, intelligence, wisdom, and finally charisma. This means rather than min-maxing your stats to fit a pre-made character idea, the default option is find out what your class is by rolling dice.
I'm over you. You're dropped.
What am I going to play today? Am I a fighter? I don't know. Which, by the way, is part of the fun intended for the game. Now, I have let players roll out of order before, when we had picked the classes beforehand because everyone specifically had a class that they wanted to learn and play for this specific adventure. They assigned the stats as desired, but they still had to follow the 14 or higher rule. There's no wrong way to play, as long as you are honestly sticking with the 14 or higher rule. But lately I've found rolling in order is just its own kind of fun and an exciting way to make a character. Then we get to choose our ancestry. In 2014 5e, this would be called races. In 2024 5.5, totally backwards compatible D&D, this is called species. You get a pithy sentence describing what they are. You get like 1 or 2 languages, and you get 1 cool ability for the rest of the game. For example, dwarves get +2 HP and roll hit points with their advantage. Elves, they get a +1 bonus to attack rolls with ranged weapons or +1 to spell checks. Very simple. Very simple. And to be fair, I've made my own ancestries to fit my world setting. Furbolg Orc. Cool. And I like how pithy the descriptions are, and it keeps it concise for a new player to just go, I want that. Depending on your source material, you have an even wider range of ancestries and classes. I'm not going to go over all of them, but I do want to mention the funniest class of them all, the official optional Roustabout. Roustabout. The best way to sum this class up is to say you are going to play not an adventurer. You're just not fit to be adventuring. If you don't roll a 14 or higher on your stats, you can take this optional class instead of re-rolling your stats. They're very squishy. So the choice is we can play the optional class, which means we take these stats, or we re-roll them all until we get a 14. 1 through 10, re-roll. 12, we take Roustabout. But they get a shit ton of advantages for some funny reason. You know, it's like, I know a guy, I'm lucky, or I'm getting inspiration because you have inspiration. It's just like, the guy, if you play a Roustabout, you simply get advantage for being a non-adventurer and being a part of an adventuring party. Checks the related interact with commoners and sourcing favors. That's not going to help here. Lucksmith. Whenever someone else uses a luck token, you get advantage. That's not going to help here. Surprising Guts. When reduced to half your HP or lower, make a DC 12 wisdom check. If you succeed, you have an advantage on your next roll. We're going to be praying for that ability to come up. This all tells a story of someone who shouldn't be there, somehow made it this far and is still alive. Okay. After you pick your background, ancestry, and class, then you roll your hit die. If your game starts at first level, roll your hit die, add your con modifier. If you're starting at level 0, don't add your con modifier at all. I rolled a 2. I have 3 HP, everybody. I can talk more about level 0 another time. Hit the like button if you want me to do that. Some people say they take the full hit die on first level, but I think they mostly are just afraid of death. It's so much fun. You might get a 1 on a D4 for your hit points. That's scary, but that also means combat shouldn't be your go-to solution for everything. And that can lead to funny, like, gameplay, that can funny moments or interesting solutions to problems. I'm all here for it. All right, I'm about to get deep into every 5e player's favorite thing, golden gear. Which involves XP, yet another 5e favorite.
You're the devil!
Hear me out, but first, I have a question for you. Would you be interested in me running a solo dark adventure on this channel? Cinematically shot, full of cinematic mini scenery, editing, sound design, custom music. I'll even try to do some funny voices for my NPCs. What that was. Go check out my Patreon. I have a list of community goals there. Plus, I release the uncut versions of all my games there. That's patreon.com/fablesd20. Check it out if you're interested in me running a game like that. Okay, let's dive in. Gold and gear.
It couldn't hurt.
First, gold isn't that different from 5e. You got the gold, silver, copper, prices equal to yeah, you got that. But if you want the full Shadowdark experience, gold is tied to XP instead of XP being tethered to monsters. I'm a fan of milestones, don't get me wrong. It has a lot of upsides. Plus, I can play with milestones in the digital character creator. So even in Shadowdark, it doesn't require you to play with XP, which I think is great. But I will say, when I do play with XP, even in 5e, I've had it tied to treasure, heroic acts, and checkpoints rather than monsters. This reduces the murder hobo effect and allows the players to have a trackable sense of progress in the adventure. Versus just, I think it's time that you level up, because I've played games with milestones where DMs hold on to the leveling a bit too long, and it feels like a lifetime just to get to level 8 in 5e. XP for me has often allowed me to give that agency back to the players. And if I do milestone, I tie it to like surviving encounters, surviving the session, or successfully get a long rest in a one-shot. Since it's only a single game and the power increase for the single game is probably going to be worth the fact that I did not balance the final encounter. Shadowdark's XP is handled in small metric numbers, 10 times your level. That's it. Plus, you level up during downtime. Nothing feels more milestone and roleplay focused than that. It encourages roleplay, mini games, and making leveling up part of the social pillar in the game. Then there's gear. I have 2 big things to cover with gear, more like 3, but here we go. In Shadowdark, gear is not meant to be resource accounting management burden kind of thing that we all kind of experience in 5e. And by us all, I do mean my experience and the people I've seen and played with. Shadowdark's a slot-based system, meaning 1 item is equal to 1 slot. For the most part, you'll have at least 10 slots, or if your strength stat is higher than a 10, then that will be the number of slots you have. So if I have a 15 strength, then I have 15 gear slots. For those who have not played Shadowdark or Alien RPG, you might have not had the fun experience that is a limiting gear system for your characters. I'm gonna dive into it just a little bit before we move on. For players trapped against monsters that are more deadly than them, and with squishier hit points, what you carry is important and always plays out as an ongoing mini puzzle that encourages teamwork and creative critical thinking. You might think, oh, trying to figure out who carries what is a pointless part of the game. But that's actually an interesting experience to have. Who should hold the gun in a cosmic horror game? Who should hold the motion tracker in Alien? Do you have enough load to do so? Do you have enough gear slots to carry this important item across the map? If you're trapped in a dungeon and the game is focused around dungeon crawling, what you choose to bring with you and what you choose to pick up or leave behind should matter to the story. If you haven't yet, check out my Alien RPG 4-part one-shot. It's on the channel. It's a lot of fun. I know a lot of people who would be upset that they didn't have what they needed, what they wanted for the adventure. But I would say use your creativity. Use critical thinking through the problem. If you don't have what you need, work with your team. If you can't use what you have to directly solve a problem, ask, how can I indirectly solve it with what I have? I can light my oil and throw it on them. Or can I just solve it without anything in my pack? So yeah, sure, there are times and places where you don't need to worry about what you're carrying. But I remember when I first started playing D&D. I played a Dwarven Barbarian for one of my characters. Classic, right? For some reason, I cared about carrying. I cared about the encumbrance rules, even though my DM didn't. As a first-time player, I liked that immersive aspect of the game and my character. What I carried mattered, what I dressed mattered. And I even spent my gold on new boots. Not fancy magical boots, just repairing my old boots because I thought that was cool. Then I got even a donkey and a wagon, not because we needed more storage space when we're walking around, because I thought it made sense and it would be helpful to the party. And I know other players aren't like me, but I really do appreciate that if I had started in Shadowdark, the game would have, by design, encouraged that kind of immersive character-driven play with simpler rules. If you're worried about your character not carrying enough, get a wagon, get a chest, get some mounts with pouches, get a mom with a bag that she might have something in there somewhere. Mary Poppins it. Okay, now, finally in the character creation process. Choose your name, alignment, and deity. Your alignment doesn't really affect you mechanically, but it does inform the game master how the world around you perceives your character, because it ties to the title, and a title changes depending on your alignment and your class and your level. So what that means, depending on your alignment, chaotic, neutral, or lawful, and your class, so a lawful fighter, the more you level up, there's an evocative title that helps the game master understand how the NPCs would perceive your character. And I think this is more effective than 5e. You're dealing with the old school chaotic, lawful, and neutral alignments. That's it. Chaos is that survival of the fittest, selfish first approach to solving problems. Lawful is that good for everyone, good of the whole approach to problem solving, while neutral is adapting and letting nature take its course. The reason why I think this affects the character's roleplay way more than 5e is, one, taking morality out of it, saying I'm a good guy or I'm a bad guy on an objective scale. Let that be a player choice throughout the campaign. Or the one session because they'll probably die because they only have 1 hit point. It really is just looking at building coping survival mechanisms. I don't think that's the actual intent of Kelsey's design or 1E, but just saying chaos, lawful, and neutral, and having those just be the guidance of your character's response to problems, that's a coping mechanism. Understanding the character's approach to solving problems is deeply, deeply tied to how you've learned to survive. It's your character's core belief. Should people fight for themselves to get to the top? Should people work together for the better of the group? Or should we not interfere at all and just fuck off? You can ask, what is the origin of this character's core belief, their alignment, in your backstory? What is the small but deep event that led them to think this way? How did thinking that way lead them to surviving in a world of swords and sorcery and monsters? Then how does that apply to their gear? Why they are that class, or so on? Like, building a character in Shadowdark is not less creative than 5e. In fact, it asks you to be more creative, to push your ability to be a better creative and thinker than 5e. If character creation was painting a picture of an adventure, both to some degree have the character outlined on the canvas for you, except 5e is paint by numbers, and Shadowdark is paint with the colors you have and the colors you want. All right, let's talk about carousing, not coercing, like I said in the last video, carousing. Sometimes your brain doesn't work. This is the main way you level up in Shadowdark, by going to the tavern and having some downtime. That's really it. Downtime isn't just a bunch of nerdy-ass actors playing D&D. In Shadowdark, downtime at the tavern is hanging out with the town and spending your gold and treasure to get XP from your adventuring. You roll your hit die and you roll on your class's talent table and you get a talent. It's not predetermined like a 5e class. It's a little bit more random within a range of predetermined possibilities. Some people don't like that. I think there's a lot of fun there, because rather than thinking predeterminedly, what is the story I'm going to tell about this barbarian when he gets to level 20, which you'll never get to level 20, let's be honest. In Shadowdark, you roll, you get the ability, and then you ask the question, how did my character get that? You're more reactive in the character creation rather than predetermined. I think 5e lends to pre-writing ideas and setting expectations in your own imagination, which can be fun, but it's often disappointing, whereas like improv, you're reacting and listening and paying attention. You roll the die, you get something, and you ask the question in that moment, how did the events of this game lead to this reward? I think it's a healthier mental exercise, honestly. But if you play with milestones, which I have, you should know that the game is designed to encourage downtime activity, and that is what leads to leveling up. Not specifically the carousing system. That's just an example or a mechanical way to run it. It's the principle of making the social pillar important to leveling up. Even on the digital character creation, which is official, you can just switch to milestones, which means you can have a great roleplay social encounter at the tavern, or at the campfire, or home base if you're in the woods. And that's the game loop, the intended design. Make downtime the leveling up. You can just go dungeon crawl. You can just go on an adventure, and on downtime between these big chapters of adventuring, you level up. In fact, in the popular third-party book, Unnatural Selections, linked down below and in the character maker, it has an alternative to carousing. It is instead using ceremonies. Instead of going to the tavern and getting a drink, you instead have a psychoactive experience with a shaman, which is a third-party class in the book too. It's like an ayahuasca retreat for your characters. And that is how you level up. So it's not 100% important what you do in the downtime, but that it's downtime that needs to happen between adventures that allows you to level up, like Ninja Turtles in feudal Japan. I don't know. I feel like that reference makes more sense in my head. Before I wrap this up, which, by the way, thank you for watching it this far. There's an optional downtime activity in the game called learning, and I really want to talk about it because it makes the game special and unique. I do hear and see people mention, oh, you only get to roll on this little table and it's not as flaring or flavorful as 5e. I call bullshit because of learning in downtime. I almost feel like I'm going to say Downton. where you can find someone who can teach you a specific ability, spell, or talent. Sure, you have to find this person, and the game recommends not using abilities or other classes, but if you and your GM are playing by the spirit of the law, not the word of the law, you'll find someone who can teach your fighter how to cast a spell, or for your wizard to swing a sword. Learn an ability from a monster. Ambush, parry, you meet a vampire who teaches you how to live forever, and by doing so, he teaches you how to drain their blood. The easier it is to find someone, I think, would be the easier the ask. If you ask for something huge, maybe something great to stop the BBEG, the harder it will be, but the journey to find that person will be epic and worth it. Just talk with your GM, collaborate, and don't die. So I'm working on a magic video for Shadowdark because I really want to talk about the magic system. I know other people have, and I even mentioned it in the previous video where there's no spell slots. That's not really the point of that magic video. I love it so much because it makes magic classes more approachable. It unlocked something in me and I really want to talk about it, and it actually helped me discover my preferred in-world magic system for my setting Aida. And I really want to share that and combine that story of how I got there and what that means for my table while talking about Shadowdark's magic system and how that empowers it. So if this game is catching your interest, go to arcanelibrary.com and support Kelsey's 4-time Emmy award-winning single creator D&D game. It can be as much, if not more fun and creative than D&D 5e. Plus, Kelsey hasn't fired 1,000 employees on Christmas, so that's a good reason to support her. Thanks for watching up to this point in the video. Let others know you made it this far by sharing your favorite Shadowdark moments or D&D moments if you haven't played it. Share it in the comments. I want to hear it. I want to read it. You can check out my solo dark stream that I did when I was recording some of the B-roll for this video. We ended up doing an entire encounter with a Roustabout named Tragon. See you on the next one. Ideally, it's about the magic.